0036. It is November the 19th, 2004, our 158th interview overall. And we're back at Westminster Village again. And this evening we have Tony Tovatt, is that?
Tovatt,
And he was in the U.S. Army.
Yeah.
And first of all, I want to thank you for allowing us to come and do this interview. And let's start off with your full name.
Oh, my name is Anthony. My middle name is Lee. And the family name is Tovatt, Tovatt.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any significance to your names? Is it a family name? Or were you named after
Yes,
somebody?
it is a family name. It's a French name. It's derived from a French name.
Okay.
My great-grandfather, when he came to this country, came through Maryland.
Okay.
And the name of the family then was Thauvette. Tovatt. And I remember going to Montreal and Quebec City.
Okay.
My wife and I, about 5-6 years ago, I always look in the phone book to see if there's, a name. And there in Quebec City, there were 60.
Oh,
I go down the street and I look at people walking by and say, that looks like my father, or somebody looking at me, your nose and so on.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. You probably don't hear that name too much around Muncie.
No. Mm-hmm.
Now, the Anthony, were you named after somebody in the family?
Yes, so my uncle,
Okay.
Anton Tovatt.
All right.
Yes, in my father's family there were 13 children.
I see.
It was a French Catholic family in Bay City, Michigan. When my father was in what he said was the third reader, the old McGuffey, I suppose.
Okay.
His father, who was a skipper on the Great Lakes, took the shipments of ore and timber across, smoked a pipe. He went down the docks. Of course, they had no lights in those times. And to a little tobacco shop to get a little pouch of tobacco, and he didn't come back. And finally they went looking for him, and they found a body down among the piling where he'd been knifed, and somebody thought he had some money.
My.
So the family rallied around the mother, and the older children took under their sponsorship. The younger kids divided them out. And my uncle, Tony, is the one who took responsibility for my father.
Oh, I see. Wow, that's a
My
fascinating
brother-
story right there.
Yes.
Wow. Sad story.
Yes, it was, but life.
Now, what was your date of birth?
August 23rd, 1915.
Oh, good. We have a teenager. Most of these, we've interviewed so many fellows who were born in the 19-teens, and they all seem so hale and hearty and sharp of mind. I call them teenagers.
Yeah. Oh.
And what was your rank at discharge?
I enlisted in 42, in the fall of 42. Let's see, it was in September. I went to the cavalry replacement, cavalry replacement twinning center, and out of Junction City, Kansas, right off the old Fort Riley reservation. And from there, I went to OCS at Fort Riley, the 90-day wonder business. And from that class, I was assigned to the 106th Cavalry Recon in Fort Hood, Kansas. And the outfit was getting ready to go overseas. And we were firing the last of our ground classification tests out on the firing range, and the Bantam came up, and it was snowing in Texas. And the a person who arrived said, here are orders. You're leaving immediately. Gather up your junk and get moving. Go into get a train for in the morning. And that's all he would tell me about the orders. And he said, you can open your orders when you get aboard the train, because he gave me the tickets and everything. And I went from there to Fort George G. Meade out of Maryland. And I couldn't figure out what it was all about until I wrote back one of my friends, and the two of the officers who were over table of organization had been assigned to go to Fort George G. Meade, and they stopped in St. Louis and decided to go on a binge near AWOL.
Right.
And of course, another fellow and I, who were junior, were sent to replace them. From there, I spent time out at AP Hill, where they were training cooks and bakers, the right end of a rifle from one to the other, because they didn't know anything about it. And also how to start and maneuver the light tanks. And the winter there was cold enough at night to freeze in the tracks.
Oh my.
And these guys were smart enough to know if you got in and gunned them, it'd throw the tracks.
Yeah.
And that was the kind of a situation we had. They were old Army guys, and they didn't want to go anywhere. And from there, you got orders to go to I've forgotten what the name of the place was down in New Orleans. And I thought, well, I'm going to go tropic now. And I was told to get tropical gear, and got aboard ship with sealed orders, and then out, when they got out, cleared the dock, then we could look at the orders. And I was to go to Puerto Rico to join a cavalry troop there. And cavalry, of course, reconnaissance. When I first went in, I was in horse cavalry. And then we went mechanized, which is a happy day.
Yeah.
And our job there on the island in Puerto Rico was to have a 24-hour, actually it was a 24-hour job of going around the island, surveying out over the sea to see that, you know, there were German subs in the Caribbean at that time. And that was our job.
Well, let's back up and get some early family history first,
Right.
before we get too deep into the military. Now, what did you say your highest rank was?
My highest rank was first lieutenant.
First lieutenant? Okay.
Yes.
Well, lieutenant, where were you born?
Well, I was born in Sheridan, Wyoming.
Okay.
And my father at that time was employed as a master mechanic in, and also as a person who worked in iron and steel at that time, and some of the buildings were just beginning to use that structural steel. And he was up on in the steel, putting and seeing that everything went together. And he used to describe to us how they used the rivets. They had a platform, and they had a forge there, and the person who was there would heat the rivets to a certain kind, pick them up, and they had a little cone, that metal cone, and he would toss them one at a time to another person way over here. He would catch it, take his tongs, put it in. If somebody on the other side, he would hold a hammer, and the other with a peen head
Right.
would batter it in, and that's the way they joined the
That's quite an art.
structural steel. And he said the only excitement was when somebody missed a ribbon and it went down somebody's neck, you know.
I'll tell you, I'd be excited the whole time.
I would. But he said it was rather tricky footing, and he had pretty good balance.
Now, how high did some of these buildings go?
Oh, most of them are around 3 stories, sometimes 4 stories,
Wow.
depending upon the size of the mill.
Okay,
Yeah.
high enough for me. Now, what was your father's name?
My father's name was Daniel Anthony,
Okay.
or Alexander, I'm sorry, Daniel Alexander. His middle name was Alexander, yeah.
What would you tell folks about him? What kind of a guy was he?
Well, my dad, after the death of his father and the fact that the children had to go with the person, the older person, their brother or sister, it was sent along with my Uncle Tony. And my Uncle Tony was engaged in going all through the Midwest, putting up sugar mills, beet sugar mills, for various companies. The one that he was with that I recall when I was young was the Holly Sugar Company. And my father went along. And of course, just as a kid, he had to do something, and kids then worked.
Right.
So my father's formal education ended with the beginning of McGuffey's first reader, or third reader. So he was often placed in the care of an iron forger by the name of James P. Paul McMahon, who became a surrogate father to him because my uncle had to be moving from place to place and he couldn't stay with him. So my dad was in charge. My Uncle Jim was in charge of my father at that time. And James Paul McMahon came from Pennsylvania, where he had taken his training at Jones and Laughlin there in Pittsburgh. And he was a master iron forger who could weld or make all kinds of things out of iron.
Right.
In fact, for me, when I was growing up, he made me a little, couple of little anvils that he had forged in.
Oh, that's neat.
He was quite valuable because the equipment, the machinery for those mills came from Germany. And if you had a breakdown in those days, then you got together and you did welding or you created a new part. And of course, you always had a good machinist there. So my dad became involved in that kind of work. When he was 10, I guess, he said, he got his first real job, and that was oiling a dinky. And the dinky is the old switch engines they used to move the beets around, and he had a big oil can, and he oiled the places that needed oil. And as he grew older, about 14 or 15, then he got the job of running the dinky, and another kid took over the oiling of it. Oh,
wow!
That relationship with the man James McMahon, Jim, and we, my sister and I, called him Uncle Jim, because at a time when the fact would go from place to place to build a factory, he was there, and oftentimes in the house he had a room and would come. He was a powerfully built man and had been in so many places that I used to marvel at why he was still alive. But he would be coming home from work when we lived in the little town of Swink. And there was a little sidewalk out in front of our picket fence. And my sister and I would stand on the porch, and he'd see him coming down the block. And he wore a campaign hat, you know, the one with the four crimps up there. And he always wore a vest and a big chain across here with a watch and an elk's tooth hanging down. And he would see us and wave. Then he'd take his hat off, take off his watch, put it down there, face down on the sidewalk, and then immediately go up on his hands and walk on his hands through the gate out there and come up to the porch and then grab both of us and swing us around.
Oh, boy.
Then he would go back and pick up his hat and his watch.
Oh, wow.
He was quite a guy.
Wow, that's a neat story.
My father was a rare combination. Excuse me,
Go ahead.
He had, as a kid, growing up there in Bay City, and all the kids there always were in boats. They were hunting. They had an old double-barrel 10-gauge shotgun, which is not made anymore, and the stock was broken. And what they would do when the ducks were flying, and they had a little flat-bottom boat, they would aim that thing, you know, and knock over the ducks, and then take the ducks, go gather up the ducks, and take them down to the market where there was a man who would buy them, clean them out, and sell them. He read fairly well, but I think mostly newspapers. He was interested in what was going on, and I know my Uncle Jim, who had gone to school, never gone to school, he went to school of mother's knee, where the mother taught reading, writing, and arithmetic. And my dad was a crack marksman, especially with shotguns, and was so good that people would come from all over when he was a hunter, and he would take them out, and if they didn't fill their limit, then he would for them, you know, that sort of thing. He made an offer when my sister and I were young to go to demonstrate either for Winchester or for Remington Arms, but turned it down. Decided it was better to be with the family instead of traveling around.
Wow, he's a fascinating man.
Yeah.
Was he powerfully built himself?
Oh yeah, he was quite thick and heavy in the shoulders and quite powerful in the shoulder. He was quite a powerful man. In fact, he boxed a lot, and a lot of times they had just pick-up fights and going from place to place. Most of the gloves, of course, either were bare knuckle or they used just a leather glove, and in that way they really cut one another up.
Yeah.
The last fight he had was with a fireman out of Wichita on the Santa Fe, and it went for 15 rounds, and he said that he and this fella who later became a good friend of his, really cut one another up, and he decided that it was too hard on the eye, so he quit fighting.
Huh.
He had a picked up, I suppose, I don't know, he had a penchant for imbibing, and I suppose you'd call him a binge drinker now. And that could cause problems in family from time to time. My mother was a remarkable woman, I thought. She had been able to graduate from high school.
Before we get too far, what is her name?
Her name was Kitty Martha,
Okay.
and her maiden name was Wolf. Kitty Martha Wolf.
That-
She
that
was born.
WOLF?
Hmm?
That WOLF
Uh-huh.
or with the E?
Yes, it was the OLF.
Okay.
She was born in southwestern Missouri, at a little place called Hell's Neck. And
Yeah,
Been through there.
yeah,
you've been there?
yeah.
Been there.
Yeah. And her father had died, and she, well, he actually, go into a lot of family history. My grandfather then, whom I never saw, of course, and my grandmother, whom I knew, my grandfather was the son of a local banker there. And he had married my grandmother against the wishes of his family, and they felt that he had married below himself.
Huh.
And so they disowned him. He was on his own.
Right.
For a while he was working wherever he could find work, and was also at that time interested in the ministry, and was a minister of what was known of then as the Hardshell Baptist Church
Okay.
there. He developed a lung condition which led to his early death, and my grandmother, who had grown up working with an old family doctor, went back to doing that, and she remarried, and well, that's all family history anyway.
Well, that's good.
But she
That's part of it.
was able to keep the family going, and eventually died at what I thought was an old age when I was a youngster, and that was 55, and I hadn't realized that wasn't old then. Of course, the life expectancy in 1904 was only 47 years. So, but that was our family. My sister name was Kitty Marie, and she is still living in Colorado, and she's in La Junta, Colorado. And my mother died at 96.
Wow.
Her birthday was the day after Christmas, and on her 96th birthday, she contracted pneumonia and died about 2 weeks later.
Wow.
And my father had died before her about, he was 91. Of course, he was older than my mother at that time, but he lived to 91.
That's pretty good genes to be working with there.
Yes, uh-huh.
Do you see your sister very much anymore?
No, she has had some problems. She and her husband had a dairy farm there, and he went into Alzheimer's, and of course he had to sell the herd. He did all the work himself. One of those kinds of people who could make money out of doing all kinds of work. And even though she hasn't sold the old place, she has one boy who lives there. Another a child lives in Texas, and one, the oldest of the children, Danny, died in an accident, in a car accident. He was a mechanic for an air company, airplane company, or flight company, and had been sent out to do some work on a plane someplace, was coming back, and he wasn't familiar with the road, and it was late at night, and it was a little slick mud, and so he went into didn't come out of a right angle turn. So it's neither here, that's just family history.
Well, that's part of this. We
Yeah.
want to get family history because,
Mhm.
first of all, it's for the family.
Yeah.
So, you didn't have any other brothers or sisters?
No,
just
there were only
the
two of us. My mother, when my sister and I were quite young, developed a kidney infection, and the surgeon at that time, a Dr. Ragsdale, there in La Junta, Colorado. We lived in a little town of Swink, S-W-I-N-K, Colorado. It's on the Arkansas River. Removed one kidney, and my father, he told my father after that, he said, I think maybe your wife will live maybe 2, maybe 3 years. So at that time it was quite but she made it through 96.
She did all right.
Yeah.
She showed him, didn't she? Wow. So Swink, how big a town was Swink? Was it?
Swink, Swink had, when I was growing up out of Swink, we lived first in the town and then went out to 3 miles north of Swink.
Okay.
But I remember the town. There was a general grocery store, or 2 general grocery stores. One that had gone out of business and gone into selling work clothing. They had an ice house where the ice was built or made in La Junta, which is 5 miles away, and all they did was sell it. They had a little lumber yard, the post office, of course, and a little restaurant. One doctor who had his office right as part of the post office building. They had a small hotel, and I didn't mention the drugstore. They did have a drugstore, and garages, a couple of garages, and I would assume probably, I don't know, the population at that time probably was about 300 or 400, something like that.
Well,
Maybe that much. I don't know what it would be.
It's a bigger town than what I thought it might be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they had the sugar mill there, of course, as one of the industries. The Santa Fe Railroad ran through there. There was work for people, and of course it was a farming community, and most of it was irrigation. And the towns on either side, especially around the town of Rocky Ford, which was a very productive area, so far as farming is concerned. Lots of garden produce, and melons, onions, hay, name it. So,
would you say that you grew up on a farm? Would that be a
well,
proper situation?
no, I grew up in that little town,
Okay.
and then when they moved there in 1924, my father and my mother decided that he was working 10 and 12 hours a day in those days, and decided perhaps that they might look around and do something else. And they decided they wanted a place where people had fun, so they were going to create some kind of an amusement park.
Huh.
And he met Earl Bennett, who was the son of the old family that had homesteaded that whole area and had made the improvements, so they could take more and more and more land. And they settled for 6 acres, was all, on this little place, and they decided that they would make a dance pavilion. They had enjoyed dancing when they were in California. That's where my father met my mother, in California. And so he and another fellow, of course he was in construction, and made this dance pavilion and put up a very primitive kind of house aside from it where we lived, with the idea that they would build a more substantial home later on. And that's where I went to another school, and it was a consolidated school in a little town 10 miles away in Cheraw.
Okay.
We were just at the edge of the district, and we rode school bus back and forth. Those old GMC truck beds and bodies, and they had those old plastic, not plastic, no, at that time, but laminated sides of wood,
Okay.
and the windows that pulled up and down and so forth. They had a big battery box to the left, and they had the big old shift knob coming out of the floor, and the kid sat on the battery box and could open the door and shut the door and keep his foot on it so that the door wouldn't fly open. The windows were just plain glass, and they'd shatter on impact.
Oh my.
It didn't have, it had a window wiper, and you know, it was this one that you could manual.
Oh, by hand? Okay.
Yeah, and the kid sitting on the battery box, his job was to do that, you know, when you get in a rainstorm and you're this guy driving. When I was in school there, I recall, from the 7th grade on, the district came upon hard times, and plunged into the profession, recession head first. The district was broke, and the people who rode, the boys who were 18 years old could apply, or 18 years old could apply to drive the buses.
Okay.
But you had to have a chauffeur's license, and the pay was quite significant. It was $15 a month, and you had to have a garage that would be warm enough in the wintertime so that the old things would start, because you had to crank them. There was no starter. And when I was a junior, made application, and I drove a school bus for a year, my senior year.
Oh, neat.
And that was interesting.
Yeah.
You know.
Did you ever get to sit on the battery box and do
Oh, yes, when I was younger, yes, I sat on the battery box. Everybody'd scramble over there to get in there, you know.
Well, so the
Down
first
the
kid on
center
bus.
down the center of the thing, you see, was the rail,
Oh, okay.
and the girls always had a seat around.
Right.
When there was no room, what happened? The boys would straddle the rail and scoot back. The exhaust ran up and under, right off the floor. It was really heavy iron, and the rail was about that wide, and it had a canvas cover.
Okay.
And the boys would straddle that and ride and scoot until you were just packed in, you know, like sardines. And that was the bus.
Wow.
They had tires that had 70-pound pressure, and when one of those blew, it blew holes in the fenders.
Oh my.
Yeah, and it was like a cannon shot.
Wow.
But they were really durable old buses. The one we had, we built a adobe garage in order to house that thing, and I was during the summer between junior and senior years, and it was a nice warm garage. So there was only one time we ever had to pull it. We had an old Dodge, had a first of the old 12-volt systems.
Yeah.
And boy, that old thing had started any time, and so my dad would pull the thing around, and I would be in there and kick it in and get her started, and then he'd go.
Wow. Yeah, you had a very colorful upbringing.
Oh yes, and the roads, of course, there were no
Interesting
paved roads; they were graveled.
Right.
And the wind there blows constantly. The mean precipitation is 9.5 inches. That's all, because it's part of the Great American Desert out there. And the roads were like this. They were like a washboard.
Yeah.
And so what you were constantly doing, you were going, you know, riding along like a roller coaster or whatever.
So where did you go to school?
To college?
To grade school and
Oh,
high school?
I began school in Swink in the first grade, and my mother held me a year out of school because I was a year older than my sister, so she wanted us to go to school together so I could be her protector.
Mm-hmm.
So I was always a year older.
All right.
Okay. Now, therefore, till we moved out to, another, outside to that city, that town rather, to a place in the country, and from there I went to Cheraw School. I graduated there in 1934.
Do you remember any of your teachers?
Well, yes, some of them. Coach, football coach, basketball coach. I remember, several of them. Spanish teacher, teachers that taught math, history, so on.
Did you have any favorites along the way? Any teachers that stood
Oh,
out?
yes, I always liked a coach, a great big guy. Been a football player at Greeley, and came from a family of wheat growers up and out of east of Denver, out on that plains. Yes, he was always very much interested in kids.
Do you remember his name by any chance?
Yeah, Ray Moreland.
Ray Moreland.
Ray Moreland. He finally quit coaching and went to superintendency over at Sugar City and went into the business of farm machinery. And
were you involved? It sounds like you were involved in sports in school.
yes, I played 4 years of football, 4 years of basketball and baseball. I ran track, and that was about what we had.
Wow, that's pretty good.
Yeah,
That's
we were fortunate in that the school was big enough to do that.
Yeah. What was your position on the football team?
Football team, I first played guard and then wound up for 2 years as center.
Okay.
Basketball, I was a guard. Baseball, I played out in left field. Track, I ran the mile, the half, the 440, which requires a heck of a lot of intense, constant,
Yeah.
guts. That was it mostly. I wasn't any good on the dashes. I had to go for distance.
How'd you do on the mile? Do you recall any?
Oh, yeah, you win a few and mostly you lose a few.
How close are we?
About a minute.
A minute?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. This might be 40036, tape number 2. At the break here, we were talking about some of the fights in the playground that you.
Seemingly over nothing. Of course, there were squabbles about boy-girl relationships. There were squabbles about whose dad could lick whose dad, and going up and up and up. And just somebody didn't like somebody, so they walk up and, punch him, and if he didn't have too bloody a nose, he'd punch back, and that's the way it went.
Oh my.
And then, of course,
How'd you fare in those squabbles?
yeah, we had a superintendent who was an ex-Marine from World War I and was a gymnast who would demonstrate
Right.
gymnastic flips and so on the bars out
Right.
in the playground. His name was Roscoe H. White. and he was probably the most feared person in school. He would yell if he didn't stand, "You boys down there," and oh boy, everybody scuttled. Anyway, his idea of keeping the peace was to, okay, we'll go into the gym, and you can settle this man to man. And he had some awfully heavy boxing gloves. And I can recall the time that I went there that wasn't most memorable. I think I must have been in the 6th grade. A kid named Ed Berry and I got into a hassle, and we were down on the ground pummeling one another, and suddenly we felt our hair just raised up by our hair, you know, and that was Roscoe H. White, the superintendent. Said, "You boys come into the office." And so we were trying to pull our clothes together and go after him, and he's wondering whether we were going to go into the gym or whether we were going to be the park over a chair and get the rock. He had a little piece of garden hose about this long, and he had it slit on the end, and you would just whop the heck out of your fanny. But for Ed and for me, we were to go in and punch ourselves out, which we did. And he, I blooded his nose, and he split my lip, I remember. And about that time, Roscoe, who was the referee, he wouldn't stand for any butting or anything else, held our arms up and looked us over and said, "It's a draw." And the coach, who was there as a witness, and the woman who kept the office was there. Students could not come into it, you know.
Yeah.
And then you go back to your classroom. That was it. You had to shake hands and say that you would not fight on the school grounds again.
Yeah.
And he meant it. Because if you did, well, wait a minute. It was generally in the office, and a little trip to the garden hose.
So how'd you get along with the boy after that?
Oh, he and I got along all right. Yeah, he was a year older than I was. And, quite a bit heavier, and he had a reach on me, and I had a hard time getting in close enough.
What were your, did you have favorite subjects, academic subjects in school?
Oh, I liked most everything he had. I don't know. Sometimes things are better than others, you know, but you like different classes better.
Did you have any idea what you wanted to do after high school?
Oh, well, I had, yes, I had been interested in journalism, and we had a school paper, and at that time the press was a foot pedal press. Yeah. That was an old job press. Yeah. And everything was set by hand, and we had a California set up, and most of the stuff was in it was in Cheltenham base, and went up to 48 points from down from 6 points to 48 points. And I had very seldom to use anything larger than just a 12-point or whatever. Right. You set up and put it in the frame locked up, pounded it down with the finger, and then you ran your brayer over and took a proof of what was there, looked at it, and if everyone had set everything in and didn't have too many glaring errors, then Roscoe would come in and look it over and say, "Oh, it's all right, listen, no." Or else no, I want you to toss that back and do something else. But it was called the Holbrook Breeze, and sustained by merchants who were good enough to put in an ad about something that no one gave a hoot about anyway, but the business manager. And so I liked that kind of work. And when I went to college, I worked on the Top of the World, which is the paper there. And when I graduated, I tried to get a job in journalism, and they were not. Well, the nearest thing was a job with the Denver Post for $30 a month. And that was it, $30 a month. Then it was a full-time day job. They weren't paying much.
Not much.
So I decided maybe I'd put that on hold. And in August, my mother was asking me if I wasn't interested in going to apply to become a truck driver, and I decided, well, maybe I could do something else. But the placement office said I noticed that there was a 2-year high school over in Montezuma County, which is in the Four Corners area, a 2-year high school, rural school, with the 2 grades, 9th grade and 10th grade. And they were looking for a teacher. So I was to get in touch with the president of the school board, who was a Scotsman and tight as a paper on the wall with the funds. But anyway, I went over there, and the 3 members of the board met at a little school, Areola School. And I went in and looked around, and they were sitting there on the desk talking cattle and sheep. There was no electricity. They all took their lanterns in and hung them up as they went in. And finally the president of the board looked around and said, "Can you handle big boys?" And I said, "Yes, I can handle big boys." I'd been doing some boxing and wrestling in college, and I thought, no problem with that. So I took the job, and first day of school, the day before school opened, it was opened the day after Labor Day. And on Sunday, I was out sitting out on the porch of the school, on a wooden porch, and thinking, boy, this porch needs to be rebuilt. And thinking about it be a pretty good project for kids. And saw a horse coming on up the lane there from the oil road. There was one oil road in that whole area. And kid came up and looking around and finally pulled out in front of tied up in front of the gate. Came up and he said to me, he said, "My mother sent me over here. She said, I have to tell you." And he said, "The boys are going to beat you up and run you off tomorrow." And I said, "Well, thank you." You know, and boy, he couldn't get out of the way fast enough because his mama had sent him. He didn't want the guys to know what was going on. So when they got them in, the kids came in the morning. We had to get organized, and we were in the process of organizing, and I was trying to spot who was going to be the leader. And kid sitting in about the middle, Art Smith was his name. And he had on those little new engineer boots that had a little knife in the side. New pair of jeans with the rivets in the back. And he kept putting his foot up over, around the desk.
Yeah.
And the girl sitting in the front there, he was kicking her. So I said, uh-huh. So I told him to put his foot down on the floor and keep it there. They were going on. Pretty soon, here he was with both feet up there.
Uh-huh.
And I said, "I told you to put your feet down." He says, "Who's going to make me?" And he was looking over at the guys over there, and they're all grinning, So I didn't give him a chance. I just went out and got him by the neck, and tossed him face down on the floor and put a Japanese toe hold on him and whammed him butt. And I really dang near ruined my hands, even though I'd been working in the field in the summer with those darn rivets. Kids. And after that, there was no question. We just kept going, had school next morning. The pickup, I bumped him out the steps and told him to go home and bring back his parents. And the next morning, the pickup drove up and came into the schoolyard. A little heavy-set guy came in and walked up to me. He said, "You whooped my boy yesterday." And I said, "Yes, I did." And I told him to bring his parents. He was misbehaving. He looked at me and said, "Will you tell?" He said, "Now I'll tell you something." He said, "If he misbehaves again, you whoop the hell out of him again." He went out, and poor old Art was standing out in the bell tower, kind of like this. I said, "Come on in, Art, and sit down." So
great.
after that, yeah, we got along real well. We had a.
Oh my.
That was a real interesting experience.
That's
You
something.
taught everything. You had the two maths principally, algebra, geometry, and then a business arithmetic, and something that they had commercial law, history, the two histories, American history, world history, English, and just the fragments of bookkeeping, double entry bookkeeping. And that was essentially it. And then you got the 2 years, and the kids were back and forth.
That's quite an experience.
Yeah.
We had one similar to that, a fellow who taught in a school in southern Indiana,
Uh-huh.
and they were pretty rough kids
yeah.
there.
Yeah.
And he's kind of a
yeah.
mild-mannered fellow. I don't know how in the world he did it, but he
Yeah.
took care of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, what college did you attend?
Western State College.
Western State College, or graduate from.
Yeah.
And-
At Gunnison, Colorado.
And when you were talking about the type, I remember the days when I worked at Warner Press and how I got to where I was reading. I would read upside down and backwards.
Yeah. That's right.
And
That's right.
that's the way the printers do it. Yeah,
Upside down and backwards.
brought back some old memories of my own.
Mm-hmm.
So how long were you at the school teaching? How long were you at the school teaching?
4 years.
4 years? Okay.
Mm-hmm. Our son was born there in the
Okay.
teacherage. My wife was a teacher over in Hotchkiss, Colorado
Okay.
at that time.
Well, this might be a good time to ask about her. What is
Yes.
your wife's name?
My wife's name is Patricia.
Patricia.
Uh-huh.
And what was her maiden name?
Her maiden name was O'Fallon,
Fallon.
Irish.
Okay.
Her parents had a ranch there out of Gunnison, Colorado. They had 3,500 acres. And they had both sheep and cattle. And she grew up there.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
How did you meet?
I met her there in college, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Did she spot you first, or did you spot her first?
Oh, I did. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, we've been married 65, soon to be 66, yeah. 1939.
Oh my. Oh my. Do you remember where you took her on your first date?
Yeah, didn't have any money. In fact, I had enough money to stay in the dorm and eat in the cafeteria for about half a quarter. And the jobs that the football coach had said might be available didn't materialize. So I did a lot of scrounging around. I did get a few things to do, and I lived for the rest of first quarter on raw oatmeal and carrots and milk, and I got that's right. And I ate 2 meals a day, and the guy that really kept me going was the grocer downtown who had this little grocery store. And I'd go in and I'd say, "Well, Mike, you got any old carrots or whatever today?" And he'd say, "Yeah, I've been saving them for you, you know." And you get a quart of milk for a dime. And But I figured raw oatmeal would be a pretty good way to go with raw carrots.
Yeah.
So, and it did. Wow. Then
Well, it didn't
I was
hurt you
able to
anyway.
batch with a couple other guys at what was known as they had a whole series of little huts up on the side of the mountain there. It's up, the altitude there is at 7,800.
Oh.
And they called it the village, Highland Village. And you could rent those things for $40 a quarter. And so 3 of us were in there batching.
Yeah.
And that was a circus sometime.
I bet.
So, yeah. And to keep warm there, sometimes in the wintertime, the radio announcer would say, and Gunnison, Colorado was the coldest spot in the nation last night. 48 below or 50 below or whatever. And we were up there in those little old things you could throw a cat through some of the siding there. Well, it wasn't just 1x12s. And some of the batting was off. And under the, most of them they had a trap door and a little place in the basement, and a little cellar. And you could put stuff down there, and if you'd keep it in the, out away from the sides, it wouldn't freeze. But we'd get up in the morning, and all of the windows were frosted over, and every nail head, in the place was coated with frost. But
That's cold.
That's cold.
That's cold.
yeah, it was cold.
So your day wasn't so bad after all, was it, Herschel?
Well, did you batch? Did you batch? And
Oh, he's been batching this weekend. His wife's out of town, so
yeah.
had a lot to do on his own there. Wow. Do you remember when you proposed to your wife? Was it a real flowery thing, or just, hey, you want to get married?
Well, I broached the subject a couple of 3 times, and she said, well, I don't know whether we have the wherewithal to get married, And finally she said, well, yes. So she's had a job. She got $900 teaching a year at Hotchkiss
Okay.
High School. And she graduated a year before I did. She was so smart, she'd been put ahead in school. And I took that job at Garrett Ridge, and it paid $1,100. You imagine that?
Wow.
Oh, that was
That's
something.
a lot of money.
Oh, yeah, a lot of money.
Now, you have children,
Yes, we have 3 children.
and their names and a little something about each one, please.
Yes, our son Patrick has, well, he had he had a stint at Harvard, and decided that he didn't want to be at Woods Hole looking at different oceanic life all his life. So he went to another college and got into theater, and that's what he has done since that time. He's been in theaters all over the country and was in 3 different soap operas. The last one was 11 years.
I'll be darned.
His last stint on Broadway was one first in Copenhagen 3 years ago, and Proof 2 years ago. And he's finally kind of half retired, and once in a while does a little stint in a movie or something.
I'll be darned.
Our middle child girl is here in Muncie
Yes.
and has been. Her husband was teacher in journalism, actually photojournalism,
I'll be darned.
and died of a heart attack suddenly 7, 8 years now. She had been working there at the university in the lab for the art department. Our third child,
I'm sorry, I didn't catch her name. I didn't catch
Oh no, her name is Sharon.
Sharon. Okay.
Sharon, Patrick and Sharon, and our other daughter is Sheila. There were 4 years between each child, and she is a counselor for alcohol and drugs and so on and so forth. Has been for a lot of years. Yeah.
That's good work.
Right here in town.
That's very good work.
Yeah.
I've seen the ones that didn't do much good, but the ones that have,
Yeah.
it's well worth the effort.
She said it's a hard thing to do.
Yes. Yes.
We have grandchildren. We have, let's see, my son has a boy. His name is Daniel, named for my father.
Ah.
My Sharon had no children. Our youngest, Sheila, had 2 children. And the girl, who is older than the boy, is married to a fellow who was a pilot for United until United flew it. Now he is flying corporate jets and is on 24-hour call.
Oh,
you know,
my.
that kind of thing is really tough. She is a speech and hearing therapist. And
Where is she?
out of Algonquin, Illinois.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Herschel's grandson is going through speech and hearing
Where's that?
therapy
Here
here.
at Ball State.
At Ball State, yeah. Well, Patty went to IU, and then she got her master's at Southern Illinois.
Okay.
So, and she has a little girl who is just here visiting the folks, and she'll be out again tomorrow. Yeah, we have a little dinner tomorrow.
Okay.
And I guess I mentioned the children.
You have a nice family.
Yes, it's good family.
Now, you were teaching back, and you were at that school for 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
So that would have been about
1938 to 42.
Okay,
And
to
in
42.
42, in the fall, my brother-in-law, Kenneth, and I decided that we would enlist.
okay.
He had our son Patrick was born at that time, had been born in 40. His son had born in 40, late 39, I guess, because they had been married a year or so before we had.
Okay.
And Kenneth and I decided that we wanted to enlist. And well, I think we had some romantic notions about war, which I lost suddenly.
So
For a long period
how'd that
of
go?
time.
How'd that go over with the family?
Yeah, well, the family, the 2 girls went together. My wife continued teaching, and Ken's wife took care of the children. So the 2 of them had a little house there in Gunnison, and of course they had the support of the family there at the ranch, that sort of thing.
Okay. Let's back up just a little bit. Where were you when you heard about Pearl Harbor?
We were coming from church in that little schoolhouse at Lewis, where the church met on Sundays, and got in and had a battery radio because we didn't have electricity there, and heard the news, and was, concerned about what was happening. And so Kenneth and I talked, and Pat and Dorothy, his wife, talked, and they said, well, it was a family. So eventually he said, well, maybe we can get something to keep us here in the United States. Well, Ken was a science teacher, and he wanted to go into some phase of science, and I didn't know what the heck I get into, but it didn't make any difference. It's all decided for you on the basis of your classification test. So I wound up in horse cavalry, and he wound up down south in chemical warfare.
Oh, really? Huh, interesting. Yeah, all the talk they have now of chemical warfare, and it's it would be interesting to compare
Oh, yeah.
then and now.
Yeah, much different.
Horse cavalry.
Horse cavalry, that's right.
That sounds interesting.
Well, the idea was, where'd you go up? Yeah, what'd you do? Do you have any horses around? Yeah, well, yeah. Oh, well, yeah. Throw him in that pile over there.
That's interesting.
Yeah, that was quite an experience, of course. Went into training in CRTC in the Cavalry Replacement Training Center there in Kansas.
How long did it take you to figure out it wasn't all that romantic?
Well, it dawned on me several times that things just weren't quite what you might imagine that they would be like,
Yeah.
You ever had that feeling? And especially the old cavalry horses. The old cavalry horses had been through so many cadets and rookies and what have you on doing the same old routines year after year until they were smarter than any of us. They knew what was going on. Our first, we had stable duty, of course, and that was currying and taking care of the horses, and those old things, were used to being cared for, and they had minds of their own. The first drill I remember, we rode in circle, and we were going to, a cavalry saddle has no horn at the men here, and we learned to mount, and like all over again, if you'd never ridden or had a saddle, and we rode circle, about 20 or so, a huge circle. In the middle of us was a big pole. We each were given an M1911 semi-automatic pistol without a clip in it. And at the command, at the walk, hold, so you go up the walk. At the trot, hold, you go at the trot. At the gallop, hold, and firing. And there you're going there, holding on with one hand, and trying to click, click, click at that pole as you went around the circle. And that was the first drill that I recall.
You recall that pretty well.
Yeah, well, you can do it a few times, you get onto it. And then we went on a field problem, and it was really a sight. We had a lot of kids there from Brooklyn, out of Chicago, so on. Had never seen a horse before, and we were going on this math problem, and their terrain there is flat and hilly, and we were going to mass at the bottom of this long sloping hill, and we were to charge the summit and do it all on command. And the officer was there grading us, on what we were doing. Well, if the cavalry horses knew what was coming, and most of them, when you went to cinch them up, would blow out their bellies, hold air. And unless you got that knee up there and hard and tinged real tight, when you got out there, they had a little surprise for you. And at the command charge, we were lined up, charge, and we had those dang M1911s. You couldn't hit the side of a barn with them anyway if you were firing. and we were going, on fire at the gallop, ho! And those old horses are out there, and here the saddles came over the sides. Guys hanging on by their bare teeth or their feet, and they were dragging in the grass, and it just stopped the charge. It was something. It was a crazy business.
Oh, that's funny.
Then when it got really cold, they'd have you detail strip a 30 caliber machine gun, light air cool, in an open shed when it was about 20 below, with no gloves.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
I'd toughen you up for it.
Oh boy.
And after you've lost 3 fingers, they let you go. To
Yeah, well, yeah, that's all right,
Oh. Well, it's been a real good story so far. I'm almost afraid to ask for more. So now, where were you located? What fort were you located at this point?
What?
When you were doing the cavalry charges and what have you?
That was in CRTC,
Okay.
the Cavalry Training Center.
Okay, and where was that located?
That just out of Junction City, Kansas.
Okay. All right. And where did you go from there?
Well, I made corporal, and I was advised to try to submit my application for OCS, Officer Candidate School. So I did, and was accepted, and went over there to Fort Riley. And I was in the same class that Oleg Cassini and his wife at that time, the movie actress, I've forgotten who it was. He'd screwed up or something, and he was a class ahead of us. I think I was in the 103rd. Anyway, he was out, I remember, he was out there about 2 nights and 2 days with a full pack, walking that parade ground with about 2 guys on his butt to make sure that he didn't screw up.
They didn't treat him like Hollywood, did they?
Yeah, no. But anyway, from Fort Riley, during Easter Sunday in '43, we had a visit from the president, who was going around to different army camps.
Wow.
And we were instructed, of course we had to, it was spit and polish, everything was spit and polish. And we had to be sure that everyone ate a square meal. And we were seated in this mess hall, and a table up here and one on either side. We were instructed that we could look when the president came in, and we were standing, of course, and we could not look, but everyone had peripheral vision, you could pretty well see what was going on, and you could see how his attendants were bringing him in because of his paralysis. But as he was seated, then we're allowed to be seated, and everyone could then eat a square meal. If you know a square meal, it simply goes out here like this, and when you come back, you go down, and then back, and then down.
Huh.
Down, back. And everyone was more or less looking the guy across from you, That was it.
I never heard that term
when
before.
he left. When he
Well, a square meal, yeah, but not.
Yeah, but this is a square.
context.
That their idea of a square
Like
meal.
eating a square.
Making a square. Yeah.
It wasn't because the food was good.
No, it just that was it.
Now, you said the president. How did the president actually come in? Did they?
He came in by train, and they had sentries scattered all along the track. We heard from, wherever he stopped the last time, and they were within sight of one another at all times, armed,
Right.
and so there wouldn't be anything, and they were inspecting the track constantly. They had engineers ahead of them inspecting the rails and so on and so forth.
Now, when they actually came into the hall, did they carry him? Was he in a wheelchair? How did
Yes,
he actually?
he was in a chair, but he had enough strength to get up,
Okay.
being helped,
Right.
and then would sit in a chair,
Okay.
and then he could be, and then taken out.
Okay.
But he left first, of course.
Now, did he speak while you were there?
Oh yes,
Okay.
he gave us a talk. Yeah,
And
very
he
friendly.
stood up for the talk, or
No.
or he sat?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, were you aware that he had polio?
We'd heard, you know, that he'd had suffered from infantile paralysis.
A lot of people didn't even know that because
Yeah, I
it was
know
so,
that.
so well
Yeah.
covered by the press.
Yeah. Oh yeah, they kept it down.
It's interesting. But what was your impression of the president as he was
Well, at
speaking?
that time, he gave us a good talk, you know, and made us feel good.
Yeah.
So,
He was a good speaker,
yes, very good speaker.
good motivator. So from Fort Riley,
Yeah. Fort Riley, I was, after being named a second lieutenant in number 0-103-2494, and sent to Camp Hood to join the 106th Cavalry Recon Squadron. And at that time, of course, we'd long been away from the horses, and we'd mechanized and so forth. And worked in M8 armored cars and so on. And as I told you, we're out on the field there and firing classifications and got the orders to go. And from there I went into near Washington, D.C., and then down to New Orleans, wound up in Puerto Rico, was down there in a troop where the Puerto Ricans, who did not like to have anything to do with us anyway, would stand with their machetes and challenge you to fight, and they'd hit the side of an armored half-tracks. They had some half-tracks, and the bantams, or in the cavalry, the jeep was called a bantam.
okay.
They would whack, and you had rabbit wire up about so, because if they were throwing rocks,
Good night.
it bounced off.
Wow. That's a strange situation. To
Very
this
strange.
day.
You could not step in any stream because of the worms that
Huh.
would get into your finger.
Wow.
Worms or leeches?
What?
Worms or leeches?
I'm sorry.
What-
In your boots, when you walked in the water.
Oh, yeah. No, you couldn't go barefoot in the
Okay.
water, and they didn't want you even then. If you had to jump across, then they said, you know, there was a danger of those worms getting and clinging to you and getting into your skin.
That's why it must be leeches then.
Yeah. No, these weren't leeches. These were
Ringworm or?
a tropical worm,
Okay.
and it's
They're
quite
different.
widespread over Africa.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
In fact, they take them out, they try to roll them up on a pencil and pull them out,
Huh. I'll be darned.
squirt them out.
We gotta quit right there.
Okay, well, that's the end of that one. 040036, tape number 3, Puerto Rico. What a strange place that
Yes, it was a very strange place. We were housed up in the mountains there at a military installation. And we had to move in a small cadre, sometimes 2 vehicles, sometimes 1 vehicle, depending on the situation, and travel those mountain roads along the seashores and then up into the hills. And the reason for that, we heard, was that because of the fact there were German subs in the Caribbean,
Okay.
and they were being supplied certain foods and fresh bread from Cuba,
Ah, okay.
because they come in, they'd find all of the different wrappers and stuff, you know, and put 2 and 2 together.
Huh.
Also, the French had an airfield at Martinique at that time, and they were fearful that they might be trying to get in there and take over that airfield, and so they had a lot of people down there. So it was just that kind of thing.
I never thought about that, but they could have done that, couldn't they? And
Yeah.
if they had,
Mm-hmm.
then they would have been within striking distance of the United States, wouldn't
That's
they?
right. That's right.
I never got. Yeah, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Right.
I don't know if they would have had the naval presence to actually.
No, it would have
Keep
had
it
to
and
have
maintain
been
it.
something, you know, explosive, I suppose.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Wow. So how long were you in Puerto Rico?
I was there only about, let's see, 3 months, I guess, something like that. And I was ordered, they brought in, they replaced our troop with another, and dispersed us in several directions. And I was sent to back to Hood, and this time I joined the 107th
Okay.
Cavalry Recon Squadron, and that's the one in which I served in Europe.
Okay. All right. So.
I was a platoon leader in Troop A and the 107th Cavalry. We had, I thought, a pretty good outfit. Of course, it's reconnaissance, and reconnaissance means that lots of the time you're on your belly. You're finding every bit of terrain that you can take advantage of and keep a whole piece. Incoming fire, depending on what it was, where it was, because it's difficult and practically impossible to know where fire is coming from. And our instructions were, don't get involved in a firefight, although we could, because we had more weapons than we had manpower to fire them. And when we got in a firefight, when we got pinned down, then we called back and tried to get some kind of artillery. You know, we had a 75 light tank behind us, and they'd start laying down fire on 180 degrees.
So what was the path
Where?
from the United States over to Europe? How did you actually get there?
We went into, we went from the New York port of embarkation, and as we pulled into New York port of embarkation, into New York, into a siding there on the train, there was another train heading in a direction to this, out of the state, out of New York switches yards.
Right.
And there were the wildest screams and noises coming out of the thing, and we looked over there, and instead of having windows, they looked like the old GI shutters, you know,
Right.
that color, that green, and there was nothing to be seen. And there was an MP on every car, and we yelled over, you know, what's going on, and said, well, you know, these are the guys here who are coming back, and there's shell shock and so on and so forth. And there were steel shutters instead of windows, and they were taking them back to wherever they were going with them, the hospitals or whatever. And that's quite a vivid memory. And yeah, we were there for not very long. We got aboard the Brazil, an old liner that had a lot of age on it. And I found out later, let in quite a bit of water down on D-deck. And halfway across, we we picked up the destroyer escort, and I've forgotten how many ships were in our convoy, but there were several. And the the Germans were in sub outfits, were really sinking a lot of tonnage and shipping. And over, the closer we got to the channel, the more depth charges were released and so on. And there on D deck, they had a contingent of black Americans who were sent over as truck drivers, and they were down on D deck. And two of us do the job of going down to pacify those people when the explosives would go off, because they'd shut all watertight doors, and there you were.
Yeah.
And there was one little ladder, you know, and going up to the next deck and the next, and that's the bottom. And every time there was an explosion, a concussion would spring those rivets just a little bit, and the water would come squirting up, and there were duck boards on there about in the bottom, about like that. And you were walking along on the duck boards, and there was water down below. And I'm telling you, that was quite a touchy business, because those guys and all of us are saying, "Is this the way we're going?"
Yeah.
You know. And some of them were quite frightened, but they had a black American who was a lieutenant in infantry, and those are few and far between. He was a real good soldier, and he and I both, you know, try to pacify the guys and say, "Look, you know, that's just a ship. You got escort out there; they're blowing the heck out of the subs if they get too close." But it was a little touchy time. We got into Le Havre. They were due to go into Le Havre, but the place was so jammed with down shipping and junk that we couldn't get into the harbor, and we went over the side on the nets with the full packs that we had down to the flat bottom scows they had, and they brought us over the shore and loaded us on trucks and took us to the holding positions along the coast of the ones that were named for American cigarettes.
Oh yeah, Camp Lucky
Yeah,
Strike.
I was at Lucky Strike. That's where I went to.
All right.
Camel, Old
year?
Gold, Chesterfield.
What year was this?
44, 44, yeah. Wait a minute. 43, 43, no. It was right at, well, they had them before 44. They were there in 43. And we were there just at, well, it was just about Christmas time in 43. So yeah, they were there then.
Okay.
And we were in pyramidal tents and out in what had been potato fields. And the mud was about so. And, well, that's where we were until they decided, until our equipment came in. It was coming behind us, you see. So I finally got our equipment, and they sent us down to relieve, we were a squadron. They sent us down to relieve an infantry division that was pretty well shot up down in the San Jose section.
Okay.
And at San Jose, they have those big chalk cliffs on the channel, and the Germans had tunneled in all the way around and under there, and that's where they kept the sub pens.
Ah, okay.
And the British and Americans were skip bombing the thing all the time. Well, the Germans had dismounted their naval armament, and anything that had two wheels, they mounted something. I mean, and they took a lot of those 2-pounders that the British had in Africa, and they had slugs of those, and they brought those around, and they were using them on us. You know. And when we relieved the infantry division, we, of course, as a squadron, if you have a reconnaissance outfit, you can't have a lot of men because you can lose too many men.
Right.
If you have enough trained soldiers in reconnaissance, you've got distance between them, and therefore you can survive a little longer.
Okay. Now,
with
the
the
primary
idea.
mission of your group,
What?
the primary mission of the reconnaissance outfit,
The missions that we were given were of two kinds. One was go out and find out what's out there.
right?
Okay, so you identify, if you can identify a tank or a gun emplacement, whoever, tell back where it is, as far as you have with the maps you have and what your coordinates are. The second mission that we got, or many of them, was to go and check on bridges and sometimes blowing the bridges. If there were no engineers, then we had to take over the job and just use composition C and wrap the steel and blow the bridges if they wanted the bridges blown. So those essentially were the kinds of jobs that we had.
So you were probably out ahead of the troops.
We were out ahead of the
The
7th
main
Army.
force, yeah.
Yeah, the 7th Army.
Okay.
And that's a pretty lonely place to be.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
Wow. Who would be your commanding general in the 7th Army? I don't recall.
Oh my God.
Was that
Wait a minute.
7th?
Wasn't Devers, was it? Oh man. Some of those names are gone.
Yeah.
One time I knew them.
Yeah.
The only one I can remember is McCall.
So with you,
McCullough.
McAuliffe, he was with the
McAuliffe.
101st.
He's the 100.
Oh, McCullough.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting
the only one
man.
I can remember.
Now, were you involved in the Battle of the Bulge in any
No.
way?
No, we went, we stayed there in the San Jose sector
Okay.
and held the Germans from coming up on the flank
Okay.
and to move through. And our job was we had to have an officer-led patrol every 8 hours. And since I was the only officer for mine and the other guys on either side,
Okay.
then we were going every 8 hours up and down the canals that divided us and hedgerows that divided us.
Okay.
And the Germans would go on one side, we'd go on another at night, you know, and you'd hear one another, and then we went through a grade coming over, a grade go over there, you know, and down on your flat.
Yeah.
So you spend most of your time on your belly and or your elbows. Carry a weapon across your elbow.
What did you fear the most in that situation?
What did you do?
What did you fear the most in that situation?
We were in what we called, we took over from the infantry, their so-called shelter, splinter-proof shelters. In other words, unless you had a direct hit, it'd bounce a lot of the shrapnel off. And what it was, simply up against the hedgerow, they dug out all these areas, and you went in the back, and over that they'd timbered and put canvas, and then dirt, and then a breathing hole up here. You moved up for observation point right here in the hedgerow, you see, and you had two machine guns mounted, one a 50 caliber, that we had dismounted from our equipment, and a 30 caliber air-cooled here, and so you had a 180-degree field of fire
Okay.
until the next hedgerow. And what they had tried to do with demolitions was to come at night and try to disarm our booby traps, you know, and slip in and put a tamp charge on top of our quarters there. And what we had were just bunks that had wire on them, you know, and you'd pull out your sleeping bag, and the water in the place was about so, and you had to be walking on duck boards or you could stack up. And it was a kind of touch and go. There were two guys always on the one gun, one over here, one on the 50, one on the 30. And they just went and you slid up there on your belly and crawled up, and that's the mounted. You could see both sides. And you had rabbit wire around the front to keep out the grenades coming in.
That wasn't to keep the Puerto Ricans out at that point.
No. Those are, no, the Germans are good soldiers.
Yeah.
Yeah, they would snipe at us with an 88 if some guy got smart and wanted to get up in a tree or somewhere. They'd knock him out of that with an 88.
Yeah, I haven't heard too much good about the 88s.
Oh,
but our guys didn't seem
they
to
are
like
a
them very
tremendous
much.
weapon.
Yeah.
They are. They fire those things as artillery or fire them as a rifle.
Yeah.
Easter Sunday, we got notice that they were going to have an Easter Sunday service. And the guys looked around and they said, what the heck is going on, you know? And somebody had talked the commander or headquarters into the fact that since these people really were Christians, because on their belt buckles it said, God mit uns, God's with us.
Right.
And they wouldn't fire on Sunday, Easter Sunday. And we were saying, yeah, you know. So anyway, we decided to go, and most of, you know, you left your security, and we went out to this little clearing in the back a ways, few trees around, and here came the bantam in, and they had this fellow who was going to conduct the service, and he had a fellow who played a little organ, you know. And we went up to the fellow who was conducting the service, and he said, you know, one thing you have to remember, you can't make noise or they'll shoot on a sound azimuth. And they can lay it right in on a sound azimuth. And he said, oh, but those people, here we are Christians, they're Christians,
Oh, my.
you know.
Oh, my.
And so he said, well, yes, but. So he said, let's all gather and we're going to have music. I forget what. Everybody was whoosh, whoosh, you know, going a while to there, and the poor guy on this organ, bam, boy, air burst right over us. I tell you, that driver who had that thing running all the time anyway, drove out of there, like he was practicing for the 500 to get, and all the guys were squirting on their bellies, you know. But we had one guy from Texas who he was, I think he'd been in, I've forgotten what organization. He wasn't West Pointer. Anyway, he was the guy who said he was going to win the war by himself. He was the one who was in charge of the light tank at 75. And he wanted to set up an OP somewhere, and they said, well, the OP that the best one around is in that windmill up there on the canal. And so he went, they said, now whatever you do, they had burlap hanging over the window. And if you used your glasses, you know, you had to get down real low and look over and just barely see what you were seeing. I know, I went up there and checked it out when we first got there just to see what the heck it was, and I thought this would be crazy, you know, because if you make one move here, it'll knock you out of here.
Yeah.
But anyway, up he goes, and he had his sergeant standing down below there, and he went up, and there was a little, the machinery was wood, and they oiled it, you know, and they used oil in those cans. Well, there was a barrel of oil sitting there, and he screwed it up and blew and he tore that stuff away and got his glasses out there. And the guy, the sergeant down below was yelling, Lieutenant! And about that time, they lay a round right through that barrel of oil, right between his legs, and knocked him clear down the winding stair. He was going just head over toes all the way down there. And the sergeant dragged him out of there and got him all banged up, you know.
Yeah.
But that's the way it was.
Oh, my. You saw some pretty heavy action.
Well, you get numb.
Yeah.
You develop a numbness. And it, you see so much awful, god-awful things.
Now, you said you went out about every 8 hours on patrol?
You had to be out 80 hours on patrol.
What were the casualty? What kind of casualties?
Well, I
did
tell you,
expect
who
from
took the casualties were the French that were on our right flank.
Okay.
They would go out smoking and singing, you know, or talking, and they weren't soldiers. They just picked them up in the streets of the cities and put them out there and told them to go up and down and see if you don't know any Germans here. And the Germans would wait for them, and then they'd be bringing back casualties and corpses. But we took fewer casualties. The division took a heavier toll of casualties than we took because of the fact that there were so many more men. One reason.
Yeah.
And you can't start a firefight, you know, in a situation like that. There was a little town there, a small village on the canal. Its name is Quinu, Quinu, and the peasants put the food up in their loft, with whatever they had, the grain, the apples, the potatoes, whatever.
Right.
The Germans were short on supplies, and you could hear the mess carts going clunk, clunk, clunk over in their positions. Anyway, we went down to just watch, because we'd heard that the Germans came across the canal and they were raiding, looking, scavenging anything they could find on these little villages along the canal.
Right.
And one morning there on Canoe, on patrol, we spotted them over on the other side. And what they were doing, they were raising a boat that they had put rocks in to sink it. They had heavy ropes. They got it up through the rocks off on the bank, got it out, and they had it organized so that whoever was doing security moved out. They took up their positions on the other side of the village, and there we were looking at them, you know, about as far as from here to that door over there, in concealment, and watched them. And they were meticulous. They had already had wheelbarrows. They got every wheelbarrow in that little place. They took them around. They went up through there, and anything they found, they put in there, you know, put in the wheelbarrow, take it over and put it in the boat. Then you put the wheelbarrow back, go, and they'd go across, and then security would come. They were the last to come across. They'd go, put the rocks in, sink the boat, fill it with water, and everything. And then I remember one time we heard a strange noise going thump, thump, thump. What's going on? And then we got up against the hedgerow and looked over, across the canal, and the volleyball going whoop, whoop. No, nothing said, no noise except them hitting that volleyball. Whoop, whoop, whoop.
Wow.
Crazy things going on. Crazy things.
Wow. That's strange.
But-
Did you have anybody you were close to when you were over there? Any buddies or?
Well, yes, I had
As you were-
a good friend who is no longer living in Chicago, attorney. He was a platoon leader in B troop, and he was on our right flank, and we were pretty close.
What was his name?
Oh,
I asked you that one.
I thought I'd never forget it. I'm sorry.
That's okay. It's probably hadn't thought.
I'm
about it
having
for a
those
long
lapses,
time.
I'll tell you. Sheesh.
Are you kidding? Oh, you're giving us all kinds of detail. This is
Yeah.
wonderful.
Oh, I'll think of it in a minute.
All right.
Yeah. Anyway, where were we?
Well, we're on the general subject, and who would you consider to be a personal hero? Would it be a particular person, or maybe a group of fellows that you looked up to
Oh,
and
you
thought,
never
boy,
know.
those
You
guys-
never know in a situation. unless somebody's out. I had an A1 Scout, a guy, I brought his picture along tonight, too. Oh. This guy, there he is, Hank Miller. That guy was like a snake on the ground. He was lanky enough and powerful enough that he could take a .30 caliber, air cool, and
See if we can get him on here. And I can't see the monitor, so I don't know what we're doing. Okay, and go ahead and tell his story here while we have this up.
Hank could go on his belly. He knew terrain and took advantage of every bit of it. He knew concealment, and he could report back in an instant and get back without getting his butt shot off. And we were in Bavaria, and the reason I'm telling you about it, and he had been working out in front of a platoon for long period of time, and he was exhausted, and the other scout was not feeling very well, and I said, okay, I'll take your Hank, you call up and back there in the mortar battery and have a sergeant come up and crawl into the armored car, and I'll take your place on the battery, the scout battery. Driver named Wood, and a guy named Cotton Johnson on the 30 caliber, sitting on the spare tire on the pintle that holds the 30 caliber.
Right.
And I just got out and was looking at what I thought might be a mine buried, you know, or it's any evidence that it might be in the road.
Right.
And that got out, and I started back to the Bantam, and we started getting fire, automatic fire, and it was kicking up the sparks from the road, and you couldn't tell, of course, sparks are sparks. And then, according to procedure, everybody started, you know, laying down a field of fire all the way around, just in returning fire. And that automatic, the machine gunner was getting on. He was ahead of us. Then he got behind us, and I yelled at Wood, hit the ditch. He hit the ditch. And I was armed with a carbine. That's what we were given. Right. The other guys had the old 30 caliber weapons. Right. And I flew through the air, and Cotton Johnson jumped clear over, and Wood went over to the side of the Bantam, and the Bantam was like this. And we were down here, and there was a little ditch, and they had a pile of rock there, and I laid on the pile of rocks with 1 foot. And I'd just gone and had my carbine in my hand, and firing stopped, and went back to find out, you know, what was going on in the platoon, and standing there talking with a sergeant I had. His name was Langenkamp, who spoke fluent German. He was a German kid from Ohio. And he looked at me, he said, "Lieutenant, what did you do to your jacket?" I said, "What?" He said, "What did you do to your field jacket?" I said, "Oh, whoa." Started looking, he said, "Hey," and he looked at it. It looked as if somebody cut it with a razor there. And he said, "Well, your shirt." I looked at it, and I had a streak across here with the cut there like a razor. And he said, "Ooh, I'm going to peeled off, you know, on the shirt." And just a little red mark along the side right here. And what had happened, either some shrapnel or a round when I had that gun like this, had gone through just at the time,
Oh my.
moving the hand, and it just took, because I didn't feel anything. I wasn't even aware of it, you see, in a situation like that
Wow.
when you're flying through the air. And that was the closest I came. The thing that really used to bother me, and it bothered most of the guys who were their heads out of the turret and the car commanders, were these snipers that were looking for headshots.
Yeah.
And dinging the pop of that stuff would just make you so damn mad, and then you could duck down and say, God, if I hadn't heard that, I wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that. It hit me because when I was a kid, we had a black fellow who worked in the ranch next to the place where we were, who had been a courier in World War I, and he rode motorcycles up and down the front lines. And he would talk about the snipers, the German snipers that would try to get headshots on him as he was going on the motorcycle. And he'd tell me how angry he was, and then he'd tell himself, George, you know, if you hadn't heard that, you wouldn't be here, you know. And it struck me, I thought, my God, what happens? You connect something from the time you were a kid, and there it is, happening to you,
That's something.
you know.
Yeah.
But that's closest I came.
I would not want to be a sniper and be caught with my weapon,
Yeah.
because I doubt if they got treated very well
No.
when they got caught.
No, no. No, this was a time when the ones that were coming at us were kids, a lot of kids. 14 years old, no uniform falling off them, and they gave them a gun and said, go out and shoot. And you'd say, you know, try to tell them to surrender. And the German, we had a SS officer, well, let me back up on that. We had an officer in the headquarters, the squadron headquarters, whose principal job, it seemed to us, was finding booze for the commanding officer. And he and a sergeant would go around and find, you know, where the beer was and so on. They came to this little village, and this was in Bavaria, and they asked about, you know, where they could find some beer or whatever, and they said, oh, that house over there, that beer building. So they went over and opened the door, and there stood a German Oberleutnant, and he had a sword, and he had a pistol here, and behind him, standing in rows, was his company. And he surrendered to that major, saying, under the Geneva Convention, I am surrendering my troops. And the reason for that was the Russians were getting so close, and the Russians took no prisoners.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they were saying, well, surrender the Americans, you better get out. But to see the SS were hanging anyone who was an infraction, we fought those devils, boy, they were something.
Yeah.
But he was decorated for capturing a whole German infantry company.
And he's just looking for beer.
Yeah. All he did was shoo them back on down the way, you know, and EMPs would pick them up.
Oh, no. That's funny.
I took too long.
Oh, no, you're doing fine. You're doing fine. I'm afraid we're keeping you too long.
No.
What
no,
a
that's all right.
story, my word. So where did you finally end up?
We were in the Austrian Alps,
Okay.
and the light tank, the guy from Texas, the light tank had the damn thing stuck in a snowdrift, and he was blocking the road, and there was infantry behind us.
Yeah.
And we were getting messages from our headquarters, what the heck is wrong with you guys, move your, you know,
Yeah.
you got infantry here, we got something piling up. And we just about had it out of that snowdrift, and the word came, it's over.
Wow.
It's over. They had, so went down into Austria, and then came back up over the pass, and we went into Kofburen again, and set up a security system for Devers, General Devers. He was in a big house in the middle of the city, and he had his barber and his, comforts, and the wire and machine guns at every, with the usual stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And we were patrolling and trying to run down SS, because at night they were coming in. They were in civilian clothes. They had the weapons, and they were shooting the heck out of, well, we had a lot of AK guys, anti-aircraft, at all the different roads and so on,
Okay.
and they were shooting them up. So we went after, searching for SS.
So just like we have right now in Iraq.
Right.
You got the fanatics
Right.
that are still holding on for,
SS did not quit.
huh?
You would get them, and they would even try to get the pistol out and fire at you, even though they knew they were going to get shot down.
Wow. Wow. I had heard similar things, but nothing
Yeah,
stated quite that way.
that's what they did. They were through, and of course the Germans were saying, "Well, yeah, hey, give them food or whatever."
Yeah.
So,
Wow. Interesting. Were you disappointed that the American Army didn't go into Berlin, or were you just as happy to let the Russians do it?
oh yeah, I didn't. No, didn't make any difference. You don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
No. For example, we were given a mission. We were close to one city, and the maps sometimes are not the best. And we went too far east, and we wound up in a little place where there was people in an enclosure. And it had the word DACAU there. And I said, kind of Lang camp, what does that mean? He said, oh no, I think it's one of these prisoners of war camp. Actually, what it was people there and they had bodies stacked up on those
Dachau?
cars, Dachau.
Okay.
And we had to pull back out, get out, and go.
Oh my. Oh my. Nasty place. Yeah, Virginia McLean was there. She went in just shortly after they opened it up. Has some description of
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, because we didn't know about it. We just read Stars and Stripes afterward and found out what was there.
It was a real shock when we did come across it.
Yeah.
We better stop here in a second. 40034. Tape 4, and this is an ID card. Well, look at that handsome fella. No wonder that wife of yours beat down all the other fellas on campus to get to you. Yeah, that's a good photo. That's interesting. Did you have anything else that you wanted to?
No, I tell you what, I've given most of my stuff away. I had lots of German marks. I can tell you that story. We were sent to check out a bridge over the Neckar River, and it was about sunset and getting dark, and the bridge seemed to be secure, and we were just turning. I had the armored car and one Bantam with me, and just turning, and I said to the driver down, I said, wait, and he did, and he cut the engine, and there was a song. Men were singing German, coming down and sound like. And pretty soon, around this little curve, here came an old boy nag that hadn't been fed very well, pulling this little cart. And there were two guys on the seat, both of them in German uniforms, and they were singing, and we had our guns, the 37 millimeter point right at them, and the coax with a 30 caliber, and wait and see what they would do. And the one guy spotted us, and took him a second. He threw up his hand. Don't shoot! I'm from Toledo, Ohio. And jumped down out of there, and he came over and he said, "Oh, I'm glad to see you guys." And he said, "By the way, how which is baseball team doing? What's going this?" And we said, The other fella was a German citizen. Well, what had happened when he talked with him, he said he'd come there to visit relatives just before the war broke. So they put him in the German army.
Oh, for crying out loud.
Yeah. And he was given the job of driving the carts and so on. And the other fella was the paymaster. And then they had this big box in the back, and he said, "What's in there?" He said, "It's a pay. You're going to go take it up there and give it to somebody so they can pay the troops." And so some of the guys started looking and saying, "Lieutenant, So what they did, they opened it up, and Lord, talk about the bills. They were all German bills, and some of them at 100 marks, 500 marks, 1,000 marks, all over the place. And everybody just started reaching, and passing money around and so on and so forth. I, of course, as a lieutenant there, I didn't see any of it. But they put a little box of it, and a little sack of it down in the turret for me. So I brought it home. German money. So I've given it to everybody, kids and so on.
I just wonder how much that was really worth, in American dollars.
And they didn't want the invasion money.
Worth more now than what it was then.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Probably
Yeah.
so.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. In fact, I gave Virginia some for her son to put in his thing.
In a museum?
She's out there looking at us.
Yeah. She's something else.
Yes, she
Quite a
is.
story.
Yeah.
So where did you act? What was the route? Did you have any other interesting stories from the occupation?
Well, everybody had points, and get ready to go home. But we spent a lot of time running down SS. So by the time we got through with that job, or else send it over to somebody else, they said, "Well, we are moving in the Pacific, and we need reconnaissance in the Pacific." And they said, "Oh, SHIT." So, anyway, they said you're going to and put everything in Cosmoline, and we're going. So we went down to Marseille and a little town of Arles, a little Roman town down there, and got everything in Cosmoline and got aboard and went out out of the Mediterranean and then to the Atlantic and started over toward the Panama Canal, and our orders were that we were to put in Cebu in the Philippines.
Okay.
And we got halfway across, and the bomb had dropped, and that was it. I did have a copy of the little ship's printout, that the little mimeograph they did. We doed it, that sort of thing. And so what they did, they put us in Newport News, and told us that we had some time coming, of course, so you could either stay in or stay out. So you had a time to adjust your thinking, and got aboard trains and came to our respective homes, and I stayed out.
Yeah, had enough.
It's a terrible thing, a war.
What did you actually learn from your experience in the military?
Was it?
What did you actually learn from your experience in the military?
Oh, I don't know. Virginia probably could talk about that. I learned that people get foolish ideas about things that we seem to have a tendency to romanticize everything. And you can't really romanticize death and blood and all the things happen to people. And you think, oh, brother. I talked with some German older people there. During the war, we'd stop, and some of the older German people would come, and they would say, oh, American, without the Quakers, your Quakers, we would have died. We had nothing to eat. The Quakers were the ones the first in there, with food after World War I. And they had to have a basket to carry the number of bills to get a loaf of bread.
Herbert Hoover
money
was
was
very
nothing.
big in that relief effort after
Yeah,
World War I.
Hoover,
Yes.
yeah, it was very good at it. So I don't know. It's an experience that you find as you go into that, I think, and you look back after a while, after all of the fuss and feathers are out of the way, and you think, what a horrible experience. You're not anywhere near the same person you were when you came out as when you went in. And you really carry, and I know it's true of so many guys who talk about it, you really carry the whole burden of all of the death that you were instrumental in helping to happen. And sometimes you think, oh, my. And at that time, you were just so concentrated on staying alive and doing the job you had to do. And after you got back and could reflect, and wonder.
Did you have problems with anything afterwards, like fireworks?
Well, yeah,
anything
yes,
set you off?
for a long time. All of us had those periods when we were just, you were really down over the experiences you had. Especially when you saw so many of the people that were good soldiers and took around or took some shrapnel, and that was it.
That's the thing I wish I could just make go away. But it's...
Oh yeah, if we could. If we don't do something, I don't know what we're going to do. We're going to blow ourselves up. Look at all of the atoms.
I see the greatest peacemakers in this world are the people who have been through experiences like yours, because all you want for the world from this point on is peace.
We've got to learn to live together on this planet. We've got to. Look at the population now. Over 6 billion and going to, by mid-century we're going to have 9 billion. What are we going to do with all the people? If we keep going the way we're going, and look what's happening to our natural resources.
It's true.
Here in Indiana, we depend more on coal than anything else, 92%. And yet, we're not taking the precautions for filling the air and the rivers and everything with mercury from it. Sometimes it just staggers you. You think about your children, your grandchildren, great-grandchildren.
Yeah, you kind of wonder, and yet Somehow they always figure out a way.
Yes, I hope they do.
I know our great-grandparents worried about us the same
yeah.
way.
Oh, yeah. But we have to do some very serious things, I think, about how we live together, you know?
What was the route you took back from Austria? Did you go back through
We
Camp
went
Lucky
back
Strike and
in.
that sort
We
of-
went back through into Bavaria,
Okay.
and kind of backtracked. Went back across the Danube at Ulm, New Ulm, and down the road to Paris and into Arles. And we shipped out of Marseille.
And came back in to New York?
Yes.
Okay.
No, we went into Newport News.
Oh, okay.
Remember, we put in there after they
that's
said
right,
that.
that's right. I
Newport
remember seeing
News.
it now.
Yes.
And then from there, train back to
Yes, went back, took train home.
back. Let's see, where was home at the time? That
Home in time was Gunnison, Colorado.
okay. Did you see the country different going on the train, going back home? Did you see the country in a different light than you had going?
Well, I was
direction?
so happy to be going home, you know. You just looked around and everything looked a heck of a lot better than what you'd been seeing. And thinking about your family and some of the plans that we had talked about, you know, what we wanted to do and so forth.
So where did you actually muster out?
Actually, the orders came with the discharge papers.
Okay.
And that card I have, you know, they put in active and they punch it out
Right.
and send that.
Okay.
So it was a very simple process.
When you got home, who was the first person you saw?
Well, the first person I saw was the family, my wife and my brother-in-law and his wife and the kids, and that was it.
Did they know you were coming home at that point?
Yes, yeah, I called them.
Wow. Bet that was a great sight.
Oh, yeah,
You impressed me as a man who did great things in your life from that point on.
No, I don't know about any great things I've ever done.
What kind of things did you get involved with? What did you do for a
Afterward?
living?
Well, I took a job working with a trucking and bus company. And I sold tickets and paid out bills of lading and all of the sorts of things you do. It was in conjunction with the Denver and Rio Grande Railroad. And I was in that job for about 2 years, I think. And then I had an opportunity to go to work for the local newspaper, the News Champion.
You finally got your journalism.
Yeah, I got in there, and that was an enjoyable experience, writing stories and doing a lot of floor work. Everybody had to pitch in. We had one linotype operator there. Her name was Agnes Winters, and she was a linotype. She had been linotype operator for long.
Yeah.
She could put the slugs out.
I bet she could really jam up the magazine.
That's right.
So a good typist would do that.
Yep.
That's a lot of work just keeping those machines up. I used to come in early and keep the linotypes
Did
up
you?
in Winter Press. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Always.
And then after I worked there for a couple of years, I decided to go back and on a GI Bill and complete the work on my doctorate. And I went to University of Colorado and completed the work there and went in 49 and completed in 51 during that summer. And learned of a job here, opened in the English department at Ball State. And on the way here, we got into Missouri on the train, and the rivers were flooding, and the water was running over the tracks, and we had people in those hand cars out checking the track to see if the train could move.
Right.
It'd move a little bit. We finally got into St. Louis, and all the schedules were jammed up, of course. So I arrived a day late. I went, excuse me, I went from the train depot to the college, and finally located the head of the English department. And he laughed and shrugged, and he said, "Well, that job has been filled. They filled it yesterday." So I, and by the way, he said, though, there is a position in the laboratory school. Have you done any research? So I told him about my doctorate and when I had done research on the teaching of English and certain facets of it, the University of Colorado and in Colorado schools. Well, he said, maybe. So he called the principal there, Curtis Howard. So I went over and visited with him a while, and he told me about the laboratory and plans they had for some work to be done, and experimental work. And so I went down to catch the train. In fact, he took me down, and I had to wait a little while. And pretty soon he was back, and then he said, "By the way," he said, "I've talked with royalty and I've talked with the president, and we think that if we'd offer you that position." So I said I couldn't accept it without first discussing it with my wife, and so I said I'd have to go home and talk with her about it. So what I did, so we decided that we came in 1951, and I retired in 1977.
Did you have to take down any of your students at Ball State like you did in that?
No. If I'd done that, I've been sued clear out of the county.
A lot of times to change there, haven't you?
Yeah.
Oh my. Wow. Is there anything in your life that you never quite got around to doing that you wish you would have done? Or? We still have time. I mean.
Yeah, it's like everybody else, Wonder if I'd like to do that. Or I'd like to do that, or whatever.
Have anything in particular that you'd like to do?
Well, at this age, I'm not looking forward to very far, And I don't know. You feel sometimes that it's what's happening to us is just beyond mending. But I know you can't do that. You can't have that attitude too long.
I'm encouraged by the generation coming along now.
Yes, we have some people that are thinking, I think. And
They're different, and yet they're beginning to pick up that work ethic that we missed for a few years.
Yeah.
And
Hope so.
I'm pretty happy with the kids that are working for me these days.
Now, you're still with Warner Press, are you?
No. I went on to Delco Remy, and then that eventually became Delphi Corporation, and I've still got about another 3 or 4 years to work with them
Delphi.
before I can get out.
Wow.
Yeah, I was 10 years, right out of high school. I worked 10 years for Warner Press and just had wonderful experiences there. And my brother was a journalism major, so he's involved in creating the work, and I was involved in printing the work. So for a while there, we had quite a
You had
quite a
shop
connection.
work, yeah.
Can you think of anything we've left out? Anything else you want to add about your family, about your life story?
Oh, I bored you enough.
Are you kidding? Oh my!
Hardly.
This was a wonderful interview. Well, we always give our veterans a chance to say a few words for posterity. Got any
My.
words of wisdom you like to share with folks?
No, I think the only thing I would say to anybody is, let's have peace.
Yes.
Let's learn to live together as human beings, and to respect each other. That's one of our problems.
Yes.
We just don't let people be people, and maybe put them down or something. I think we have to learn to live together.
That's right.